Alright, homies, this is YamatoCannon coming at you with another clip about how to get better at the game. This time we're going to just focus in on the aspects of the game, solo queue itself, not the mental part of it or what you do outside. This is, we talked about how you review and how to not tilt. We talked about these things. The next part is what am I supposed to get better at? How am I supposed to get better? How do I do it effective? How does this entire solo queue thing work? I'm just gonna throw myself into it and say, guys, I'm gonna get better today. YamatoCannon told me to get better, but what does it mean in the context of the game, right? So the first thing we need to clarify is in the context of League of Legends, consistency is very important. Consistency is consistency is your standard over a long period of time. If you look at the average, how good is your average, pretty much, So, in the sense of it, if you have 51% win ratio over a period of 100 games, then your average is fine, right? It means your average is on an upward trend. You are gaining elo after a large amount of games, but this is still like a very very small amount, right? It's pretty much two games. Two games the difference of how many games you lose and how many you win, right? So the difference might not be that big. That's why consistency is so important, playing a large volume of games and having consistency. And maybe with a little bit of luck, you can gain even higher win ratio. Because keep in mind, if someone has a 60% win ratio, 55 even, it is very impressive, right? Usually the people with high win ratios are the ones that boom through early ranks and boom very, very fast. But then eventually when they are in Challenger or in Diamond, I'm talking about pro players here, they tend to kind of scale down, and eventually after a large volume of games, it kind of goes down into like 52, 53, 51, depending on how good you are. And if you are above the 50% line, you're going to pretty much stay where you are or climb. So this type of perspective is very important because you can't expect massive changes right off the bat because there are variables in one single game that can be the deciding factor. Sometimes someone disconnects, sometimes you have a lever, sometimes you just have worse teammates than the enemy. But I am here to tell you that these factors don't matter. Don't focus in on the factors and the variables that you cannot control, because these are things that you cannot control. The only thing that you can control is your own consistency. And the thing is, if you're playing in Silver 3, the enemies you have and the teammates that you have, they're going to be similar. After a period of time, they're going to be very similar. There's like the Silver 3 hive mind. They are very similar throughout. People that stay there and are stuck there, they are very similar. They try to tell themselves that they are special and different, but they are very, very similar. So the way you stand out is you focus on yourself, your own consistency, and then you will rise above, right? And the reason why this is so important is that after a large volume of games, if you play 100 games, all of a sudden you might have won one disconnect, you might have lost one disconnect, and all outside factors won't matter if you play a large enough volume of games. They'll all balance themselves out, and you'll be the only thing left standing. So you have to ask yourself, are you going to be the complaining kind that says, oh, I'm just losing because of my teammates, man? Or are you going to take charge upon yourself and, of course, focus on your own consistency and raising your own consistency? One important fact that is very important to note: promotion games are kind of unlucky in the sense that promotion games, you can't play a large volume of promotion games. You have to look at it separately from regular games because they have a higher importance, higher value than other games. Winning promotion matches is way more important than winning regular matches. Sure, regular matches are the ones that take you to the promotion series, but when you're in the promotion series, a loss and a win, they are valued so much more, right? Because of the system. And that is very, very sad, right? I don't like the system at all because in a sense of it, if you're unlucky in a promotion, it means so much, right? If you get a disconnect in your own team or in the enemy team, it means so much. So this is why I'm not too big a fan of the promotion system, because it adds RNG. And the reason why it adds RNG in the promotion system is because you don't have a large enough volume of games to control the RNG aspect of promotion series. In regular rating systems, it's very easy to control the RNG aspect because you're playing such a massive volume of the same type of game. So now we understand the solo queue system and the problems with it and how you should approach it. Reaching a 51% win ratio is very decent. You want to just have kind of this upward trend, right? And the main thing to remember is, when let's say you have 51% win ratio, this is the number we're working with all the time. If, let's say, 2 games, this is 2 games difference. You're winning 2 games more than how many losses you have. You have 51-49, right? So over the span of 100 games, if you start losing games because of your own stupid reasons, it is very bad, because you're playing a game late at night, you're tired, and you're just playing because why not? You do a queuing with your friend that you know sucks, and you're just doing it as a favor. That's also bad for your win ratio and your gaining of elo, right? You're playing a game because, let's say your mother is taking you to this nice Italian restaurant, and all of a sudden, you look at the clock, you have 30 minutes left to play, and you're like, man, I'm gonna make it a 20-minute game. And all of a sudden it isn't a 20-minute game. Big surprise. And all of a sudden you're playing your game, you're like putting your pants on while you're playing, and you're like, your mother's calling you, she has her shoes on already, and you're like, man, if we just get this Nash, come on guys, and you're like pinging your teammates, ding 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 ding, and then it just doesn't work out. You're playing in a stress state, and you're like playing as if there's a ticking time bomb in your kitchen, which in a sense is a good metaphor for your mother that will be angry at you because you're gonna lose your reservations in your Italian restaurant. So it's very important to not waste your games like that, right? Next point is, of course, and not of course, you guys have no idea, so it's unfair to say of course, focusing on one lane and playing very few champions. So I'm gonna use the example of top lane. Pick 3 champions, maybe even less. The bans that happen in solo queue, they're not gonna target ban you. They're not gonna look like, this guy, I'm gonna snipe this guy and tell my teammates to ban 3 champions, his specific champions, and then make a splash like that. No one does that. So focus in on a few champions. Let's say top lane, you play Cho'Gath, Jarvan, Gnar. Very good lineup. You can pick into anything, you can blind pick at all times. So this is a very, very good lineup of champions, right? You can pick anything else. You can play pretty much any decent champion, but remember, a good tool to use is like looking at win ratios and in solo queue. Don't try to be like this guy that plays Ornn and masters Ornn. Don't be that guy. Maybe it works. Ornn is a bad example, but don't be that guy that plays like plain useless champions. You just put yourself in a disadvantage. I'm gonna make Aatrox works and I'm gonna be special and cool. No, don't be that guy. Just trust me. Don't be that guy. Just trust the win ratios, right? Sometimes it happens that some guy is going to pop off on some champion, but that is after a lot of time investment. Sometimes it happens that it works, but it requires such a time investment and such a risk. I wouldn't say it's necessarily worth it if your only goal is to climb. If your goal is to be all special and make montages, then go ahead, enjoy yourself. But for the sake of consistency, you want to pick the winning formulas, right? So you're focusing on a few champions. The reason why this is so important, because you want to get down the micro aspect of the game as soon as possible. The micro part of a few champions. That is how micro means your mechanics of the champions, how you land your skill shots, your mindset in lane phase, how you play lane phase, how you trade, how you fight. That is micro, right? That is just plain brute force, understanding your champion, how you fight, right? And after you get this down, you start focusing on the macro aspect of the game. So one important thing to note is when you are pushing, you are winning. A lot of players tend to do this thing where they push in the lane. Now, let's say I'm playing Cho'Gath and I'm pushing in the lane, and then I'm looking at my enemy CSing. I'm trying to hit him with the Q, wasting mana, hit him with the Q, 60 damage. This doesn't matter, in a lot of cases it doesn't matter. What you want to do is look for opportunities how to transition this into the rest of the map. And what you need to learn first, right, when you're pushing your lane is how the jungle works. So from top lane, you have to teach yourself how the jungle works. How does jungle interact with your lane? So the next step for you would be to learn how the jungle works. That is also part of the macro, right? And then eventually you have to learn how the mid lane works, because that is the next lane that you want to transition your pressure into. Let's say you're playing Cho'Gath, you're pushing in the lane, you are playing blue side, you're going into tribe bush, you're going into mid lane, you try to gank the mid laner. All of a sudden, it's like a Cassiopeia, and you just face checked her, and you just got one shotted because you're itemizing Ninja Tabi against the clown of a Jarvan that is in top lane. You know, this happens, right? So it's important. The next step for you would be to learn how the mid lane works, and then it's also important for you to learn how the bot lane works, because all of a sudden you have to use your TP in the bot lane. That is the next step of how you transition your pressure, right? So focusing in on one lane and a few champions is very, very important, because you will have a trickle down effect on everything. Because when you get the micro down, you can focus on the macro aspect of the game, and you can learn looking at it like that, right? And something that is important to note, like, I know there's fill and sometimes you don't get your role. If the role I recommend you playing, if you're playing top lane or any other thing, is usually jungle, because jungle is the role that is going to interact with your lane the most. In a lot of cases, the jungle role is the one that interacts with your lane. So this is the role that is the most relevant to your lane. So it's a good kind of second role to have. If you're getting fill, make sure to play the simple champions. Don't be the Vayne guy. Don't be the first time Thresh guy. Don't be the like, I'm gonna pick Azir for some reason in the mid lane because I saw some sick play. Don't be that guy. Don't don't think don't think to yourself that you're some special person that will just pop off mechanically, because in mostly the people that are going to watch this video are just not that person. Well, on average, people are not that person. If you are a faker, go ahead. But I doubt faker's gonna watch this video. So keep it simple. And don't be afraid to dodge if you get a role that is just terrible for you. Your MMR is what matters. Your league points, losing 3 points is not a big deal. Just go for it if you don't feel comfortable. If you are playing with really shitty teammates and you got a Timo and a Nunu, you can also dodge. That is completely fine. Like, don't like, if you feel like there's no chance, literally no chance for you to win the game, then just go for the dodge. The next thing is, I talked about how you can interact with the entire game through one lane. The next thing is to recognize win conditions. If you mastered, how to transition your pressure from top lane into mid lane and bottom after you get pressure in top lane, you want to start to recognize what champions are going to really, really pop off in the game, right? Let's say you have a Kog'Maw and then the team is very low range. All of a sudden you want to pressure the Kog'Maw. Let's say you are playing Darius and the enemy team is full of range champions. You're going to fall off really, really hard, right? So you want to be as effective in the early game as possible. You want to take those risks, right? Something that is important to note too is like not look at win conditions too hard in lower ratings, because usually sure, you get an advantage because of your win conditions, but it doesn't. You can win games even though you have a worse team comp, right? It's just something worth considering. You want to invest your resources into the right people in the team, right? And by resources, it's not like, yeah, Kog'Maw, take this wave, take this wave, take this wave. It's more about just pressuring into Kog'Maw and making sure he can push out, making sure he can fight. Sure, you can give him waves too if you want. That's completely fine. In lower rating, scaling champions tend to do a lot better. I've noticed that most games turn out to be 30 minutes, 40 minutes. They tend to go to that Baron stage, so scaling champions tend to do better. Champions that allow you to take charge are also very, very good. You can practice your decision making by doing those engages. In a lot of cases, people split out and, do a lot of mistakes. It's about being very accurate and punishing those mistakes, because most of the time in every solo game minimum, people do 10 mistakes, and if you're there at the right time, you punish them, you get a natural, you all of a sudden win the game. So champions that take charge are very good too, like Zac, Bard, maybe Varus or Ashe. Like, engaged champions in general are the ones that take charge, because in most cases people are going to react to your engage and be ready for it. That is a very simple part of the game. It's kind of a cue in everyone's mind. Like, yeah, Zach is eating in now. I'm going to commit to the fight, right? Some cases it doesn't happen, but that sucks. I'm not going to like in those cases. Like you just have to deal with it. So that is kind of what you should think about. The later you get in, the farther you get in, like Diamond 1, maybe Master, then you can like play early game champs as well. You can start throwing in a trash, whatever, maybe like Elise, Twisted Fate, like these very snowbally champions, Aurelion Sol, Talia, like these work at lower rating too, but they are harder to kind of master, I would say. It is definitely an approach that is worth taking. If you focus in on playing Talia or Alien Soul and you perma gank, that works as well, for sure. But there are some champions that just fall off pretty hard, and I would put some champions in that basket. Trash and Soul Q is still pretty decent to play if you are a support main and you can land those clutch hooks. Then that's completely fine to do, right? It's all about finding your thing, focusing on your thing. Look at the win ratios of op.gg, focusing on one thing and then have a trickle-down effect on the entire game, focusing on micro in the beginning, mastering micro, and then looking at the macro aspect of the game, because micro is what bridges the gap to macro, and macro is what wins you the game, right? Macro is what gets you those nashes. There's been so many times where I just played, I don't know, some game in Diamond 5 or Diamond 3, and the enemy team just had no clue, and then at 24 minutes, I just ping Nasher, and the enemy team they don't even notice, People are very unaware of these things. So these are things, all these things that I've mentioned now are things that you can review, things that you can look for in your games, how you transition your pressure, are you pushing your lane, are you winning a lane, how can you win your lane? These are all questions you need to ask yourself, right? And then the next part is always to evolve, right? So if I put a timeline on it, first, master your champion. After you master your champion, master your lane by understanding how the jungle works and how other lanes interact with your lane. And after you've mastered your lane and you're pushing, transition your pressure into the other sides of the map, meaning playing into mid or playing into bottom or playing from mid into bottom and top. Maybe you're playing jungle and you recognize the strong roles in your teams. Jungle is a completely different role, but I don't want to make this video too long. So I'm going to leave it at that. Focus in. That's what I'm trying to say. Focus in on one thing, get good at that, and then make sure it has a trickle-down effect on everything, like a rain on a window screen. That settles it. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. This is about solo queue. Peace.